So welcome to the Hybrid Work Sandbox and our fifth day of the 5 Behaviors Masterclass. This is our very first live broadcast of this material. We've been doing this material with teams for as long as it's existed, live broadcast, but we're starting to bring it in through these new formats so that people can jump in while we're live streaming. And it's been a little bit like opening up a new restaurant with the best chefs in town and the best menu ever. There's always kind of that soft opening. So congratulations to everyone who's participated with us in our soft opening. This is how it has been. So this is day 5. And today we're gonna focus on probably my favorite topic, which is results. Being able to have a team work well together is critical for getting results, getting the right results. So we're looking forward to sharing that with you. Again, I'm Rachel Berg. I am the CEO of Sandbox Consulting Group and the founder of Sandbox SSI, which is a retreat location and co-working space on the coast of Georgia. We're going to walk through the teammates real quickly and let you learn a little bit about each of them. Shonda, can you introduce yourself, and then Graham?
Absolutely. So, hi, everyone. Welcome. Great to have you back. If you're here for a return visit, I'm Shonda Kohlhoff, and trainer, facilitator, coach, and someone who just really is passionate about these 5 behaviors of a cohesive team, especially right now in our spaces of either living at home, working at home, being at home a lot more than we used to be, and trying to make it work in this remote format. So great to be with you and talk about the final layer, the results today.
I'm Graham, and I'm tech support. I'm,
Short.
I'm I'm managing most of the behind the scenes. I'm be managing chat as well as just keeping everything healthy behind the scenes. So hopefully everything works out well. We've had 1 or 2 hiccups during the yesterday's session, but overall everything's been going smoothly. So hopefully with today it goes perfectly fine. Looking
So
forward
if
to
anybody
seeing
has
it.
any questions or tech support issues, just jump onto the chat and say, Graham, help, which is what I do on a daily basis. Then he'll be able to help you problem solve if you're having any kind of issues with the broadcast. So without any more ado, Shonda, please take us into the content and our PowerPoint. We're going to have some visual aids just to help walk through the conversation.
Absolutely. So it's great to have that visual with us. A lot of us are visual learners. So you can see we are on day 5. Welcome back. Hopefully, you've seen some of what we've already done. And if not, welcome for the first time. That's okay too. But it's June 28th. Can you believe how time is flying? This really is a bit surreal. But here we are, getting started talking about the final chapter, let's say, the final part of Patrick Lencioni's model, which is so powerful, especially today, closing that virtual teamwork skills gap. We're going to talk first about where that gap is and how it has been created through our situations of working remotely right now. And then we're going to really delve into getting those results. How do we get to that point where we can produce the highest level results on our teams? And how can we do that individually, right? What is our personal obligation, responsibility? Being on a team is not easy. It's hard work. It takes a lot of dedication and a lot of drive to be successful. And I don't think we always talk about that. We think we have to know how to do our jobs. We know our skill set. We know how to interview well, how to present, what we can do. But very, very rarely have I ever witnessed someone say, and I really struggled to learn how to be a great teammate. And I can say with honesty that I'm there now. That's not part of most job interviews, right? That's not how people define themselves or identify in a lot of cases. But today we're going to actually delve into what would that look like if you truly were looking at yourself in the mirror, having that self-reflection and saying, I really believe that I have the skills to be the best teammate because I get results with my team in this way. So that's what we're going to take a look at. And it's kind of exciting to think about it, but we do have a context in which we're looking. So, first of all, the case of why we're talking about all this is because this big number, 42% of all workers in the US are fully remote, and that is not changing. That's not going away. As we found, 90% of human resource leaders are saying this idea of semi-flexible work where some will be working remotely and some will go back to face, and some will be hybrid is here to stay. That's a large percentage. There's a lot of agreement there across the board. So we know that this is viable information, that we are keeping ourselves current, and you're keeping yourself current by being here with us today. Thank you for
Video.
investing in your knowledge and learning and growth. And we're always looking for you to help us grow as well. So please keep those comments flowing and feedback going, because that helps us to keep on keeping on in the best way and sharpening our swords or
Video.
saws, if you will, so that we can be the,
Bye.
the most informed that we can be in this process. There was a survey, speaking of most informed, that we want to share with you. This survey included over 4,000 different professionals from a variety of different industries and roles and types of organizations. And they found the following information to be true that we are using, which is why we say this is such a critical aspect to have the five behaviors model of a cohesive team at your fingertips, on your tool belt, ready for you to be able to implement at any moment. And hopefully, the sooner the better, right? We always say, mañana, right? Tomorrow, we'll deal with it tomorrow. I'll get to that when I have more time. Well, there's no time like the present, and there truly isn't any time like the present right now to get into this and think about what you can do. There is power in your hands if you take the time right now to consider what it means, where this virtual teamwork gap exists and where we can go. So, looking on one side of that equation where we're kind of scratching our heads right now, going, wow, how did we get here? A year and a half ago, we never saw this coming. We're over here with this certain set of current skills, and we say, okay, this is what I've got. This has always worked in the past. What is going on? Right now, I have to work from one Zoom meeting to the next Zoom meeting to the next Teams meeting. I'm constantly
Video.
go, 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 like dedicated to my one different team over here, one team over here. And it's a nonstop battle, let's say, for a lot of people. That's the feedback we're getting to keep that energy going, to keep that constant connection going. It's taking a lot more of our energy, and a lot of us feel depleted. We were able for a while to have a stopgap measure to be able to bring in our best and to solve the problem for the problem at hand. But now we're like, okay, already, all right. This is not going away. We have to still deal with it. What are we going to do? Because there really is a need for more, right? Those skills, that gap exists, and there are skills that we could add into our tool belt, and some of us have learned how to not be on mute, right? This is fabulous. This is great, right? We're not having to constantly remind everyone, you're on mute. I'm tapping on my microphone or on my earpiece here, to letting people know that they're on mute. We're getting better and better. Those kind of skills are coming more naturally. We figured out how to not be in the dark on our screens, right? How to shine that light on us, whether you have a ring camera or you're sitting by the mirror window somewhere that's giving you a light source. We're figuring these things out, right? How to be the best to be able to bring our message across, how to have a microphone, right? How to use a headset. All of these things are really helpful to not constantly have a thump, thump, thump sound every time you tap on your desk. All of these things are helpful, right? We're learning as we go. We're increasing our skills, but there is still some more that we're going to talk about today, and we have been talking about in this master class, which help you on the team level, right? That you as an individual are part of that team. And so, why is this so important? It's here, right? 50% of us are worried, right? We're still concerned about the situation. We know it's not going away. We know we're going to have to continue to operate in this virtual format. And there are some definite cons in it, right? It's not all pros. Some of maybe the introverts on the call today or that are watching this are saying, "Oh, it's great. I love not having to go into the office, not having to, you know, not having to." Some people are saying, I don't have to actually get fully dressed, put on my, you know, work shoes, whatever it is. I don't have to deal with traffic anymore. There are lots of pros, right? But for a lot of us, there are still some cons, and that's what this 50% is communicating, that there are some cons that are giving us reason to worry. And that's ultimately why we're talking about this, because these key findings make it so clear, right? That we are struggling. There is a level of struggle bus right here. We are on it, and we need to find ways to connect better with our colleagues, right? And so I know Rachel and I, we've been working to do this in a lot of ways. Rachel, what do you think? When we have our meetings, do you want to share how we do that to sort of stay connected before the actual task is at hand?
Well, first of all, as everyone knows, the leader has such an impact on the cadence, and being a type leader that prefers to just respond, I'm kind of like a firefighter as opposed to a fire prevention. So it's because I have a team that I work with that are very good at anticipating and setting up. We've started gathering and being able to use Zoom and be able to set things up specifically. Some meetings are for brainstorming, but some meetings are going to be for operations, and some meetings are going to be for sales. So we've separated things into specific topics, and try to stick to that topic instead of going into brainstorming too much during an operations meeting, for example.
Hmm. Absolutely. So having those categories or those buckets in place on a regular basis really helps us to structure our time and our focus. And also having time together, to sort of have that extra 10 minutes or extra 15 minutes in the green room, where we have the chance to kind of exchange what's going on in our lives outside of those tasks, outside of the business arena, really helps to kind of know, and that check-in, right? How is that person feeling today? What else is going on in their lives in the background that we're not seeing perhaps face to face? But if we're allowing that time, if we're structuring in that time before the meeting, then we have a chance to exchange that, right? And that really helps a lot.
We do talk about
We
cats, and we talk about and we talk about 3D printing. So it is those moments when we take and on purpose, we don't just jump straight into, even if it's an operations meeting, we'll stop for a moment and find out about, hey, have you been out on the sailboat? How's the weather out there? How are the kids enjoying the beach? Like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that really helps, because otherwise we would be struggling to connect. And this is what the majority of people are saying around the world. 7 in 10 are saying that they definitely are struggling to maintain that sense of camaraderie, that sense of connection, and that sense of, morale, which was so natural before. We now have to work a little harder at it. We have to actually have those structures in place to make time for it, to invest our time in it, in order for us to actually, yeah, have that semblance of connection. And otherwise, that struggling piece is really creating isolation. And that's what 67% of the respondents said, right? That they are feeling a genuine sense of isolation. And when we have that sense of isolation, it means that we really can't bring our best to the table because there's this background noise, right? We think about that. I use the model of communication, that we have to choose which path. How are we going to encode our message? Each one of us has our idea and we have to choose a way to encode it. Are we going to just pick up the phone and talk to that person? Are we going to go and meet them somewhere now? Are we going to just text it really fast on the phone? Are we going to send an email? What are our options, right? We have plenty of them. There's no limit on the number of options. But once we choose the way that we're going to encode the message, we need to have that follow up piece to see, first of all, is this the way the person likes to interact? Perhaps they have a very strong preference for texting over the telephone, and they'd rather you just send me a text. Don't talk to me. Don't call me. I'll get to your text. I'll see it there. I'll be able to get to it as soon as I can. And so we need to know the other person's language, right? Which is their preferred, as we know with love languages, this is preferred communication languages. So finding the way to encode it, and maybe sometimes we can't do it the way they want it. Maybe in this situation, it's a little bit of an emergency and we aren't reaching them by text. So we have to pick up the phone. We have to call and say, I need this right now. Please help. Emergency, mayday. And so we might have to do it in a way that's not their preferred way, but getting their feedback to make sure that they A, received it, and that B, they're able to do something about it. Because sometimes they're in the midst of an emergency situation as well, and they can't tell you immediately in that moment, I see that you're trying to call me. So that's why, making sure you've talked about this. This is like your emergency communication plan that you've plotted out beforehand so that when this thing comes up, when this arises, you'll be able to connect and not struggle as so many people are today. And as we look at those communication challenges, over a third of the respondents found it is really hard, right, to communicate. We are challenged, not even though we have all these ways, all these means of doing it, we're not feeling successful in the way that we're going about it. And maybe it's because we're all, looking in a fishbowl, like seeing ourselves, feeling subconscious as we see our picture in that Zoom square, not wanting, that to be under a microscope. A lot of people are feeling a little bit like, oh, can I just turn that off? Fortunately, Zoom is giving that option now that we can opt out after a short time. So that's nice. They're learning and hearing what people need because it truly has, from a psychological basis, been proven to cause more stress, to cause more anxiety. When you are seeing yourself up there on the screen, it's distracting for a lot of people. And you'd much rather focus on the other faces in front of you, not yours. Because think about it, when we would be face to face, you don't see yourself. You're not looking in a mirror. So it can be really distracting. And so that's one of the things that technology is growing with us. It's growing with the needs that we're discovering through this remote work of what is best practice and what works best for each individual. But we have to find our own path and be conscious of what works for us and what is too much. And being able to say, yeah, it's really important that we're all on camera, right? That we're allowing ourselves that eye to eye, but maybe too much of a good thing is too much, right? There has to be maybe some windows where you say, okay, let's start out the call, the first 15 minutes, then let's switch to, our PowerPoint or to something else where we're not seeing all these different moving parts, all these different faces staring back at us. It is a lot for our brains to process. So being aware of that, these communication challenges are having an impact. But one of the biggest ones is not only the way we feel with each other, but the way we feel in the with the organization, with the whole of our team, with the whole of that operation that we're part of. And a lot of us are feeling out of the loop, right? We're not feeling that, those sidebar conversations that used to happen so organically in the break room, over lunch, in the parking lot, waiting for the restroom, right? Whatever, wherever you were along the way in that face-to-face environment, it's not happening as much. So you're not learning some of the cursory aspects of the job and what's going on in the organization. It really takes effort to now reach out to people outside of your department to find out things. You have to actually allocate that time to say, hey, how's it going? And what a great feeling that is when someone reaches out to you and says, hey, I haven't seen you or heard from you in a while. I miss seeing you, in the hall, or miss seeing you in the break room. Tell me how life is treating you right now, right? It's a great feeling. And so we need to sort of schedule that in if we want to keep our cup filled up, right? Making ourselves feel energetic, making sure that we're reaching out to the people that used to provide us with energy, give that cup some juice. And so this is something that we are having to add into the mix. It's not going to happen organically just by walking down the hall anymore. It only happens if we're making time for it. So, as we're thinking about how this is affecting us in this virtual environment, um, let's think about the debates, right? When's the last time you had a debate online there in your Zoom room? Has anyone found some challenges with those when you have a disagreement or you have a difference of opinion? A lot of us are. A lot of us are finding we talk over each other. We're struggling to get a word in edgewise. We're finding, maybe it's not the right time. We start, we stop, someone else starts, they stop. It's a bit of a stepping on each other's toes game, right? That we're feeling. And sometimes we say, it's just not worth it, right? I won't even make waves right now. I don't need to put myself out there and be the troublemaker, quote unquote. Well, this is where we get into trouble, right? It really is trouble. It is trouble for us if we don't assert ourselves. And that's what we've been talking about these last 4 days here in the masterclass is how vital it is for us to assert ourselves and to put our opinions into the mix and not just go, ugh, I can't deal with the overlapping, with the struggling to find the moment. Um, I we hope we are encouraging you to be brave, to be courageous, to not just throw in the towel and say, whatever, never mind. Please don't, because what that does is it impacts, just like these challenges that the survey has found for us, it impacts the whole. It impacts the team's viability and the ability to reach its results ultimately. And so that relates directly to what we're talking about today. So all of this is to say that we need to have more productive debates, right? We need to put ourselves into the mix. We have to throw our hat into the ring, but we also need to make sure that it's a psychologically safe environment because 62% are saying having discussions right now is difficult, right? Some said it was somewhat difficult. Some said it was difficult. Some said it was very difficult, but the majority rules here. And it's so true. I've certainly seen that. I'm sure you have too. So all of this is our challenge, right? We have this problem. Now, how are we going to solve it? And here it is. We're going to give you some tools and tricks of the trade of how we can be more connected in spite of our virtual format, right? How to be more effective in our organizations if we are willing to take on, let's say, something new. Something new for us because work is less personal, because we're having fewer interpersonal interactions. We need to really focus on building trust, right? And that trust element is so critical. And that's where we need to have, obviously, the ability to have productive disagreements, productive debates, as we're saying, but also know that people have our backs, that they're not just, snarkily sitting there waiting for us to, struggle with our microphone again or struggle to make our dog be quiet. That they're actually like, it's okay, you got this, we'll hang on, we'll be right here, it's all good, right? Giving that sense of faith in you, giving trust in you comes right back tenfold. When you give it to others, people give it back to you. So it really makes an impact if we have that foundation. Without that foundation, we really can't reach the highest level of results. It's simply not possible. So how
And
do we close that gap?
before we
Yeah.
move to next, just we had somebody type in on Facebook, David Falco says, since much of communication is nonverbal, now it's much harder to read body language during a Zoom call. So that's
Oh, yeah.
over 90% of our communication is not the words we're saying, which was what we read in a text or an email. It's the body language. And a lot of the body language gets truncated, if you will, or is just from the trunk. In other words, you're not seeing even some of the body language we would normally use. So thank you, David, for making that comment in Facebook.
Great point. Absolutely. Yeah. It's so we're missing a lot, right? We're missing a lot of those cues and clues. And so how do we make up for it? We have to actually take action, be proactive to make up for those losses. So I think that's such a great point. And as we're talking about those challenges, right? How do we close the gap? How do we draw the bridge? It takes two sides, right? There's ultimately a way we have to know that there's a net underneath us, right? We're not going to just take that leap, that flying leap, and hope that they're, in that trapeze, for example, in the circus analogy, that there is going to be a net below us, that there is going to be a culture of teamwork that's going to catch us when we step outside of our comfort zone, when we get brave enough to assert ourselves in ways we haven't before. This is really important to know that there is a team there on the other side that can catch us. And so, as we talk about how to create that team, how to create that atmosphere of team, there are three key strategies that help us to actually not just manufacture but genuinely produce that culture of teamwork. And the first one, it starts with us, right? The power is in your hands, just like you can see the woman here. The power is in her hand of looking in that mirror, right? Reflecting, what does she bring to the table? What does he bring to the table? What do we as individuals provide when we're looking at, you know, how the process can be better? We often tend to point fingers of blame at, oh, well, he was late to the meeting, he's always late to the meeting, or she didn't even listen to what he said, she just steamrolled and went right over what he was talking about. We think of all the things that are going wrong for others, and we don't hesitate often to stop and say, okay, but what did I do? Did I contribute? Was I an accomplice in all of this? If I said nothing, yes, the answer is yes, right? If we're not saying something, we might as well be an accomplice to the crime, right? We're not, we have to stand and say, okay, I think everybody needs a timeout right now. I think we all just should take a break and let's meet back in 20 minutes or how about we take a 5-minute break and we'll reconvene, right? Giving those timeouts, being proactive and recognizing that we do have a role. We're not completely out of our comfort zone, but we have to know how, right? Who am I? What do I bring to the table? And how can I influence the situation? These are all parts of self discovery, which can really help us. And the second strategy is just human nature, right? It takes practice. None of us are going to do this fluently, perfectly the first time. Asking yourself to, you can't just ask a fish to just get out of the water, fish. Go ahead and walk, right? You can do it. Sorry, no matter what your encouragement level is, it's not going to happen, right? But if you slowly over time give that fish the tools, right, to become a salamander, it can slowly evolve into that and be able to walk on land, right? But it takes time, it takes practice, just like any other skill. So this is what we encourage, not in any way that the goal is perfection, but that the goal is improvement. And the third and final is working to build that environment, what's on the outside of trust. So we can start with ourselves, we can work with each other. As you see, the woman in red here reaching out to the woman in blue when she's having clearly a very bad day and saying, hey, can I give you a hand? Is there something I can do right now? Looks like you're stressed, and that's that nonverbal, like David was talking about, right? She's rubbing her temples. She may have a migraine. She's having a bad day, whatever it is that she's going through. But the person in red is recognizing it, and that means she's genuinely part of the team. She's not just overlooking what's going on for others, but paying attention to those cues and clues. So those are the three. Those are the three steps for creating a culture of teamwork. And there's a wonderful tool that we at the Sandbox provide you to be able to do all of this. It sounds great, right? But how do we get there? How do we do it? And it's called the 5 behaviors of a cohesive team. And that is the personal development program that we offer. It's a full day program. You can also offer this to your whole team if you wish, but we're focusing first on you, right? On the individual that's watching this and what we can do as individuals as we look forward to Patrick Lencioni's concepts of these 5 layers and today being results. How does it work? It's all based on this book, a best-selling book, which you may have read. If you have, please tell us in the chat. We'd love to know how many of you are familiar with the 5 dysfunctions of a team. It has been on the bestseller list for quite some time. It's an easy read if you haven't. You can quickly download it on Audible or listen to it on your way wherever you're going with your headset on, and while you're maybe folding laundry or whatever you may be doing the dishes. You could be doing this at the same time. It's a great way to increase your knowledge and awareness of how it works. It's a parable, so it's an easy listen or read to a story of an organization. And I think you'll recognize a lot of the patterns of each of the participants in this team. You can definitely see some parallels, I think, in every team I've ever worked on between these. And sometimes we have team members who genuinely are not fit for the organization. That's one of those hard conversations that we rarely like to talk about. But there are those who genuinely are not in it for others. They're in it for themselves. They're thinking of their own individual success, and they are not a good fit for the team. Of course, there are ways to coach and try to help them to see the big picture, to see how they play a role in all of this, but not everyone is willing to adapt. There's some cases which was the case in this book where some people had to leave. They had to leave the team in order for the team to thrive, in order for the team to succeed. And so being aware of how adaptable am I? How can I help the team? Am I bringing my best, my A game in all these skills? This is what this book helps us recognize. We have a video for you to also hear it. So for those of you who are more visual and enjoy hearing things and seeing things come to life, here's a great description of this program and how it works. So let me go to that, and hopefully you will be able to hear it and see it in just a sec.
So as she puts it up, I know people who've been going through the master class, they've seen this before, and it's natural to go, oh, I've already seen this. But I want you to listen, because every time I listen,
we've been thrown on one.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Rachel.
I was just going to say
One team after another.
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Really, it's okay. Finish your sentence, and then we'll start. That's no problem.
with the master class, the reason we play it all 5 days is because, one, we're hoping people will jump in when they can. So some people may not be able to come any day but Monday. So we want everybody who can only come once to see the video. And if you're coming and you're doing all 5 days, you get a gold star on your forehead. In fact, there's some great benefits to watching all 5 of them. You get discounts on a lot of things with Sandbox Consulting Group if you go through all 5. But what I encourage you to do in regards to this video right now is, even if you've seen it 4 other times, watch it again and listen for how these concepts come together, because I've heard Patrick Lencioni a million times, and I heard something new yesterday that I hadn't heard in the video before. So pay attention to what you didn't hear before. All right, go now.
Soccer teams, project teams, work teams, you name it. And even though we have lots of experience being on teams, the only advice we've ever been given about how to be a good teammate is to play nice and everything will work out. But what if it doesn't? What if people spend more time politicking and posturing? What if people can't agree on which direction to take, so they go nowhere? What if everyone is just looking out for themselves? Turns out there's more to good teamwork than just playing nice. That's where the 5 behaviors of a cohesive team comes in. Based on Patrick Lencioni's New York Times best-selling book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, this simple but powerful model consists of 5 behaviors that people can master to become a better teammate and to start building stronger teams. Here's Patrick to explain those behaviors.
There are 5 behaviors that all teams have to master to become true functional teams. The first is trust. Team members have to trust one another, which means they're vulnerable with one another. Vulnerability, which I think is one of the most important characteristics any human being can embrace in life, is nothing but admitting who you are as a person. It means they're capable of being completely honest and human with one another. That's important because it enables them to embrace the second behavior, which is conflict. Yes, conflict. When people are vulnerable and trustworthy with one another, they'll engage in conflict without fear. They'll debate issues, and they'll be totally upfront with one another. As a result of that, they'll be able to embrace the third behavior, which is commitment. They'll commit actively to decisions, and they'll leave the room on the same page, totally committed to follow through on what they've agreed to. That commitment will give them the courage to hold each other accountable, knowing that they're doing nothing but reminding each other about what they've intended to do from the beginning. And that accountability will ensure that they get results, that they're focused on the collective results of the team and not their individual needs.
So it starts with trust, it goes to conflict, commitment, accountability, and ultimately, results. That's it.
Now, ironically, it's not that complicated to build a team. It's pretty simple in theory, but it is hard because it requires a lot of work over time and a lot of courage. But it's worth it because the benefits of a great team are truly extraordinary.
And it all starts with you. Teams are made up of individuals after all, and every individual has a part to play in making them stronger and more cohesive. It's how we get back to those teams that were fun and fulfilling, and we couldn't wait to be a part of.
And that's what we want, right? To get back to those teams, right? To get back to that sense of what was fun, right? Getting back to fun is so critical. And I think that's for all of us what we should be aiming for. So when we're thinking about how the 5 behaviors personal development works, this is the way. There are 3 steps. First, there's an assessment, right? It's an easy assessment asking you a variety of questions that you're, trying to be as honest with yourself and with the situation as possible. The more honest you are, the more accurate the results are. And it literally takes 20 minutes. It's not a long, and it does amazingly get to the heart of who you are as a person and what you value most. But just starts with that. We send you a link, you click on it, take the assessment, and then you receive a personalized profile. And this personalized profile is 23 pages long. It will refer back to your results on every page, giving you the specifics because it's not one size fits all here at all. In fact, it amazes me how to the point, how much it totally pegged me. I know Rachel, you've also said it was spot on. So everyone we've worked with has been pretty incredibly. I think they find it pretty incredible. They just are kind of wowed that it is so accurate. And those insights are what we work through with you in our live powerful facilitation. And that can be live, meaning online, or it can be live face to face. So we are offering both options right now, and we're pleased to bring people together, not just whole teams. Of course, you can have an intact team that participates in this and get all your people together at the same time. But if you say, well, I don't think I can organize that. I don't think everybody's ready for this. I am though. And if you are, then you're the right person to go forward with the personal development aspect. And so today we're talking about the 5th and final layer, right, of results. And you heard Patrick Lencioni saying there, the first one that he was talking about was trust, that vulnerability based trust. If you think for a moment, whom you trust, right? Who is it that you would trust? Let's say, I said this yesterday about getting in a car. Who would you let drive your brand new car? You just purchased a big car, a new car that you're excited to have. Who would you give the keys to? Not just anybody, right? You might hesitate. You might be really excited and want to keep it pristine as long as possible, but only someone that you really genuinely believe is integrous, is going to do the right thing even when no one is looking, right? Who's really going to respect your car the way you would respect it. That's ultimately what you're looking for on that vulnerability based trust. And I use the car analogy because these letters of the model that we're looking at, so that basis was the T, right? The next layer is conflict, not just any conflict. We all need conflict in order to grow and to be able to storm to get to our norm, but we do need to make sure it's psychologically safe when we are storming, right? That conflict is not going to blow up and become a drama fest, but rather be a place where there is psychological safety, where there are some norms for what is acceptable, and knowing that we sometimes might cross the line, but we will immediately correct, and it won't lead us into Armageddon. It won't take us over the edge into this dark space where we can't return, but rather we just go, I didn't feel good about what happened yesterday on the Zoom. Can we try to avoid doing X, whatever that was that happened yesterday? And saying that, being courageous enough, as Patrick just said, being courageous enough and being invested enough, right? That's where the commitment part comes in. And that's why I say commitment is the C, right? A is accountability and R is results, CAR, right? So we're spelling that car, it's your AC car. If you think about this whole thing, who do you let in your AC car? You want it to be yourself. You want to be able to trust yourself. And you also want to be able to trust that all of your teammates are in that same car with you, that they are committed to ride the ride, to get all the way to the destination of those results with you. And so that's really what we're talking about today, is focusing on the final piece, the results. And what does it look like, right? What does a team look like that avoids accountability? If you're not in that A piece that we talked about yesterday, you're never going to get to the R. You're never going to reach those top group agreed upon results, right? Those that you're looking for. And here's what the research has found. And I think I've certainly lived this and seen team after team recognize the wisdom behind this. That first of all, there's a resentment among team members that have different standards of performance. So even though somebody who may be, working for the very first time, they don't have those standards set yet. They haven't experienced it yet. They haven't been in that situation where there was such a high demand for performance, perhaps, right? Maybe they have, but that we can't make that assumption, but it's possible that they have a different standard of performance. And so the others on the team might become resentful. They might feel like they're putting in, so much to try to make things look their best, to try to make things move forward in an efficient manner, and there's this one person who's just simply not paying attention to the details, right? And this other individual doesn't feel it's their job to tell the other what they're doing wrong, right? Because that's not in my job description, but that is in your team description. And that's what Patrick Lencioni points out in this brilliant model. And what does that do if we don't hold each other accountable? We encourage mediocrity. Ugh, I think that's the worst word on the planet. It makes my skin crawl when I hear mediocrity. It truly, truly is like, oh, I'd rather not do it at all if we're going to do it at a mediocre level. It's just, oh, such a buzzkill, such an emotionally draining thing to think about, is just enough to get by. That mediocrity piece, it is an energy killer. And what happens as a result is the team misses deadlines, right? There are key deliverables that don't happen. We say we're going to have this, by Monday or Sunday, whatever the day is, and it doesn't come, right? Those deadlines are missed. Those deliverables don't make it on time. And then there's a scramble, right? And then everybody's scrambling at the last second. Oh gosh, we better hurry up and get that. Let's get that going, right? And what does that do? Well, it places a really unusually large burden on the leader, right? Because suddenly they're the only source of discipline. They're the only one that is, let's say, holding people accountable because they have the power to fire, right? Hire and fire. They have that ultimate word. That's what's going to happen. But what, if you remember from yesterday, what Patrick Lencioni was talking about is he finds this challenging of all the layers. He finds accountability the hardest of all five. And why does he say that? Because ultimately he knows it's going to come back to him, right? If he doesn't establish this idea of each one of us holding each other accountable, he as the leader, it's going to fall right back on his shoulders. And so he's going to have to deal with it anyway. And so it's like the gift that keeps on giving. You think you're getting out of it by not having to face the music and say the heavy stuff, but in the end, it is on your shoulders, right? As the leader. And that isn't fair. If all of us are really truly committed, and that's that C in the car, committed to getting in to that car and going all the way to the results together, then we have to be able to say, this isn't working for me, or I thought you said you were going to do that by, yesterday or day before, whatever it was. But holding and being that what we kind of think of as the bad guy, especially here in the South, um, it isn't the bad guy. Actually, that bad guy is the good guy, right? And that's what we have to be able to flip the script and recognize is that it's okay. It is in service, right? In order to have accountability. And the team that does have the accountability, they make sure that the four performers feel pressure, that they're not going to just keep on doing the lowest level of mediocrity, but they're going to be inspired or pushed, let's say, like, hey, come on, we owe it to ourselves to do better than this. And identifying those problems quickly by questioning without hesitation. This is one of the things we tend to hold our tongues and not say anything like, oh, well, maybe it'll resolve itself. Maybe I don't have to be the one that points this finger out, points the finger of blame or hole or whatever this is going on here. I don't have to be the one, right? Yes, we do. Each one of us, if you recognize the potential problem, it is on your shoulder. But what do we get as a result? We get respect, right? That the respect comes to us by our other team members who now have gotten feedback that might have been harsh. And if you remember yesterday's story, I was telling you that I got this harsh feedback when I was living in Germany. I had just as a graduate student, I just graduated from a wonderful program at American University School of International Service. I felt like I had these great skills and wisdom that I wanted to apply to my work, and I wanted to apply it to this consulting firm there in Berlin. And that leader looked me right in the eye and said, "No, you're not old enough. We don't even consider anyone for this position until you're 30." And that was a harsh statement of feedback that I didn't see coming. I never thought that I was being discriminated against based on my age. But once I could let that settle, once I could actually see that for what she was saying, I understood and I could be more objective and not take it personally and say, okay, what she really means is if I want to get this position, I'm going to have to change my approach. I'm going to have to, instead of focusing on, let's say, levity, lightness, joking, or trying to create a positive atmosphere with this, potential interview, I need to focus on the facts, the skills, and a little bit of my maturity aspect as opposed to the get along, let's all be friends kind of perspective. There was more formality necessary. And so it even started with the look, right? What could I do to make myself look more mature? Well, I stopped wearing contacts. I started wearing glasses. I started letting the gray show, which is like, oh my goodness, really? We're going to do this? Yes, we're going to do this, right? We're going to show it all. It's going to be, that's the vulnerability base. Like, if this is going to enable me to get to my goal, then I'm willing to try, right? The results were there, and the results are hit or miss. Truly, you have a target in front of you. And the next year, when I went back to that conference, to that CITAR conference, and I met with her again, I had changed my whole image. I had changed my approach. And she hired me on the spot and said, I'm going to give you a client. I have something coming up next month. It's yours. And so, because I was willing to take on the feedback, because I was willing to change my perspective and not just think that the way I was doing it before was just right, that was who I was, that was part of me, I could be me in another way. I could find to another angle, which actually would be more successful in that cultural environment. And so that was a huge learning, a huge aha, if you will, that could work. And so that's what we all can do is take on that feedback that may sound harsh to us. And I'm not saying any feedback, right? There are going to be some things that you get that you go, hold on, that's completely out of left field. That couldn't possibly be true, but maybe it is. So having a sidebar conversation with somebody else, do you think this is true? Have I demonstrated that to you? Do you think this would make a difference? Having a second opinion, just like you would do at the doctor's office when somebody tells you you need to have a major surgery, you probably are going to go to a second or third opinion. Same thing for taking on a major, yeah, feedback piece that might change or seem harsh at first, but might change the way you operate in the end. And then you can get the results. And as I did, in 1 year's time, I was able to reinvent myself and see what would work in that cultural environment of Germany. So that leads us to the final one. In a culture on a team where there is accountability is part and parcel of how everyone operates, there's not a lot of bureaucracy around performance management. That isn't really what's important. Yes, you might have that 360. You might have a performance management meeting yearly or annually or every 6 months, but it isn't as important because it's an ongoing process if you really have an accountability based team. And there are examples of teams without focuses on results because you might say, I think we do pretty well, right? A lot of us have the perspective that our team is excellent, that we're hitting our goals, that we're getting the results that we want. But are we? Are we really reaching the pinnacle? This is the question, right? It's something just to consider. Is there something that I could do differently to bring about more of a focus of results for my team? And so there's a little video for you to consider here and looking at what might be. So take a look at this, look at each one of the characters and see if perhaps you know someone who that is like, or is it you, right? This is our question for self reflection. That's strategy number one of looking in the mirror for a moment. Take a look and see what you think. Here it is.
We've had a 30% drop in leads this month.
No, I haven't had any drop.
Me neither.
Now, my numbers are good too, but I still think we could go down to the regional offices and do some training. I mean, leads are the core driver of our business. Right?
I've got way too much of my own work to do right now.
And I've got 4 conventions lined up. So.
Conventions? I mean, we actually get anything out of those?
No, they're great. They help me learn about the latest trends.
So did you guys see that Carlson won the municipal bid?
I know, I couldn't believe it. I thought we had it.
Whatever, that project would have been a nightmare anyway.
Totally not worth it.
But we are up against them again this month. Who is doing that pitch?
Yeah. So that pregnant pause of who is doing that pitch. So write with us in the chat. What do you think? What did you see going on there? I'm curious what your impressions are. Yeah. What did you see? What was the moment for you there that kind of went, ooh, that was awkward or that was difficult? There's probably something there where you say, yeah, that could have been better. Rachel, what did you see there? I'll since we don't have a chat, anyone talking, what did you see? What do you think?
Yes, I'm on mute. I'm on mute. We were just talking about that. So now I'm off of mute because a lot of times in my environment, we have emergency vehicles. So I put myself on mute. Well, you can see the team is focused on results, although the woman starts the conversation with, we're off by 42%, and nobody in the room will admit that they're off of their stats. So clearly, if they're focusing on results, they're going to know they're off by 42%, but they were unaware of their area being a factor building into a 42% drop. So that right there means they're not actually focused on results. The young lady who was talking about, she loved going to these conferences because it kept her on the cutting edge of what's happening. But they're talking about, we don't really get business out of that. The results from that isn't adequate for the price paid. So they're focusing on other things besides the results as they have the conversation. Then when they talk about the fact that they didn't get the deal, they talk about, well, it would have been a difficult customer anyway. So they're just not looking at, not objectively. They are wanting to justify. They're trying to hide. So their focus is not results. Their focus is on a lot of other elements, some of which are very important, like staying at the front of your industry can be very important. But is that the best place to do it at those conferences? It may be, but they're not being objective about it.
Right. And this is our challenge, right? How can we be more objective? How can we see, not pointing fingers of blame on, it must be somebody else. It's not me, right? We're all quick to say, oh, it wasn't me. But how can we actually say, well, what was me, right? To stop and say, well, we're all on the same team. So there is something. What we are interrelated, but how, right? And sort of having the patience, a lot of times it's patience to pick apart what's going on and to recognize that there are actions that you can take that can have an impact on how, that whether or not that target is met or missed, right? If we are like Merida, and Brave, hitting our target, hitting it bullseye right down the center, or if we're going a little bit astray, right? We're kind of shooting and missing. What's happening? There's something going on. And so each of us has to kind of assess, our bow and arrow and how we're shooting it and what our procedure is in order to know what is going on for the ultimate group goal of the results. So we want to give you an example of one that actually works. Let me give you that. Apologies. So
We've
we
had a
move past that
30%
one, move
drop
back
in
so we can
leads
see the
this
right
month.
thing. Now here's the focus on results, so you can see that. Let's take a listen here and see a shift in the same conversation, how it would be more focused on results.
So we've had a 30% drop in leads this month.
I saw that. Do we know why yet?
We are looking into it.
Well, I think we should go down to the regional offices and do some training. I mean, the last time we did, we saw a huge boost.
No, my to-do list is a to-do list right now. But Charles, if you can help me with a few proposals, I'd be able to move a few things around and make the time.
Absolutely. Happy to help.
Yeah, this is a priority. I had a few conventions lined up, but I'm going to skip a couple.
Thanks, that would be great.
So, did you hear that Carlson won the municipal bid?
I know, I couldn't believe it. I thought we had it.
Yeah, there's no good reason why we should have lost that. I'm going to sit down with Brian tomorrow and figure out what went wrong.
Well, let me know if
There
you
it
need
is.
anything
So
from me.
definitely hear a difference, right? What a difference we hear in looking for the why, right? And that's ultimately what it's all about, is knowing that we all are implicitly involved in these results. We all have a role to play, but what is it that we can do to be more aware of why things fell apart, why we didn't get that contract, why we didn't succeed in that. So I'm going to start one more time. I will try to get out of there too. So here's the
So we've had a
question, right? As we're
30%
thinking about what this means, ultimately, hopefully, it's making sense right now after you've seen those two videos. How do you know if your team is focused on results? What do you think? You can type that in the chat if you have an idea. There's some ideas here for you to chew on, to consider, but these are the key elements that everyone brings their own experiences. Obviously, your team might have some other ways that are indicating to you that they are focused on results, and we would love to hear that and love to share that with others. But what we found is that team members value collective success over individual achievement. You remember that video where the guy is straightening his tie? He's just thinking about himself, right? He's not thinking about the collective success of his whole team. And just like the lady in the last one who said, well, maybe I was going to go to these conventions, but I'll cancel a couple of them because this is important. The whole team's need is greater than my individual need to sharpen my saw, to learn more about this part of the industry. So that's important for us to have that moment of, well, I'd like to do this, but is it the right time for me to do this? Is there something else I could be doing that would be of greater value to my team? That's ultimately the goal. And also looking at sacrifices. And that's what she did, right? She willingly made a sacrifice. Well, she may not have wanted to, but she willingly did because it was in service of what everybody needed, to take the time to figure out why they missed that last bid, why they weren't successful, and what they can do to make sure they get the next one. And the
So
final point there is when the team fails. Sorry, Rachel, did you want to jump in there too?
I just wanted to say that each of the people, when they talked about the result and it being missed, they took time. At least two of them said, we're going to look into it. And that can be a deflective thing. Hey, we'll look into the results and why we haven't hit it. But they're going into what we call a film review. And that's the really most important piece, is to have results and then go into the film review like a football game and really look at it and be able to come back to the team. So that was just an indicator in that second video of best practice, which is don't just talk about film reviews, actually have them look at what was working, what didn't work, what did work. So go ahead.
That's it. And now that's really it for the third point as well, because each member needs to take personal responsibility. And the only way they can take personal responsibility is if they do that film review, right? They need to look back, play by play. Was there something I could have done better? Was there something I could have teed up so that they could then take it and hit it, like hit it off the tee beautifully? Is there something else that I could do? So really taking the patience, taking the time to do that film review, to recognize how all of us are dancing in this and how we could be perhaps not doing the best thing. We could be getting in each other's way. Maybe we're double doing. Maybe there's something more efficient that we can streamline. Or maybe there's something that I need to give to him because he's already in that, let's say, software program. So it makes more sense for him to do all of that. And I could save more time doing this over here, right? So we figure out what works best for the team by taking the time to recognize our personal responsibility in that. And so that really, as we're coming to our final minutes together as we're talking about creating this culture of teamwork, we hope that you've enjoyed us coming to you in this master class, these 5 days here in a row. We hope you'll join, if you haven't already, our Hybrid Work Sandbox group. We have that both on Facebook and LinkedIn. And if you'd like more information like this, that's the best place to sign up. So we will be continually posting there additional input and insight, and also, based on the questions that we've received during this masterclass, we'll be posting those answers there as we come across them. And we'd love for you to join us in a live or in a virtual space for us to work together in this personal development workshop that's offered on August 18th, right? So we're going to do that virtually with you from 9 to 4. Or if you are here in the St. Simons, Georgia area, we'd love for you to come. If you haven't been here, it's beautiful. The Golden Isles are definitely a destination not to be missed. Come and spend some valuable time doing that bleisure, right? That's business and leisure together. You can have the development workshop with us on September 17th. Stay the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. We'd love to host you here and to support you in that process. And we'd also love to hear from you, your feedback on what you have enjoyed about our thoughts or on this program. So looking for your insight through all of this. And we'd love to see you in our personal development workshops of the future. I want to thank all of you very much for being with us and expanding your focus on results today. It's been a pleasure being with you. And if you are looking for more information, we do TED Talk Tuesdays. So tomorrow, I think Graham's going to help us put that in the chat, some information about how you can join us on a TED Talk. We do have a great topic coming up tomorrow, which relates beautifully to these 5 behaviors of a cohesive team, ultimately talking about how to create productive disagreement, whether that's on a team or in your home or any time in your life. It's a great talk that we hope you'll join us for. We always break it down with poll questions, have a discussion, and think about the implementation, how we can put this into life in our own lives. So we hope you'll join us for that. That's always going to be at the same time, just like today, from 12 to 1 Eastern, and that's on Tuesdays. If you're interested in any of our programs, just send me an email or look for that chat link that Graham's putting there now.
Yep, everything is in the chat. We've got everything all the resources that our viewers may need.
And I'm thinking that if you could also pop it into each of the groups, like we're learning all this together. Like when I'm looking at Facebook, for example, or YouTube, I mean, I'm just looking where's the chat. So if we could go also in to where there are some comments and post some of these links in the group as well. I think that'll be, y'all look for it there as well.
Yes, everything will be located in all these locations.
We're learning how to do all this, and it's kind of interesting. And thanks to Graham for all of his expertise, and for Shonda and all of her expertise. We hope y'all have enjoyed this 5-day masterclass where we focused on the 5 different behaviors, that if you can hone those behaviors in yourself and then begin, if you're leading a team, to hone it in your teammates, then you're going to be getting the results that you're wanting to hit, as opposed to struggling. Most organizations, most groups really struggle, and because these behaviors haven't been honed. So this is like a little magic formula for hitting the results that are so important in today's world because of the turbulence. We've got to be able to hit the results we're going for. So thanks so much for your time. And we've hit the 1 o'clock hour. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and we will be back next The next time we will have a master class, and we're going to do the same one again, but it's going to be new data, new information. It will always be fresh and also consistently the same topic. We're going to be having August the 26th through the 30th will be our next master class. So you can go ahead and pencil that into your calendar. Thanks for being here. We appreciate it.